How beautiful is it in your part of the VUU neighborhood? Today we are continental. I am in snowy Michigan with its beauty. Katie and Marcy and Mary and Libby are in beautiful, cool Arizona like the rest of you. And our wonderful guest preacher, a dear friend, is in beautiful Los Angeles. And no doubt there are people from other places as well. But the VUU neighborhood is where we are, not where we are. To make sure our spirits are gathered from all these corners of the continent, we gather ourselves with music. And so we turn to the Teakwoods Choir, who will remind us that we are always marching in the light of God.
Every Reverend is a New Year. Poems by Marilyn Singer, collages by Susan L. Roth. This book has New Year's poems, so if you're interested in reading the whole book, you can find it on Amazon and in some of our local
Please bring your chalice near to you.
Midnight Ball Drop. Tonight, hand in hand with Grandma.
And we will soon
this merry, loud crowd.
have a chalice lighting, but not at this exact moment.
Bringing on a confetti shower. First,
please, if you're at home, bring your chalice, and you have a chalice or a candle to light, bring it to you. And we will say our chalice lighting words when I light this chalice. For the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love, which calls us to look for justice. And now we're going to be singing. Please join in singing if you're at home, humming if you're here in the sanctuary. One of our favorite songs from the words of Rumi, "Come, come, wherever you are, whoever you are." And we should have that soon. Thank you.
Come, come, whoever you are. This is a song with two parts. I'm going to sing the first part, then the second part, and then we're going to combine the two parts together in a round. Please sing along.
Good morning, everyone. I am Marcy Goodwin. I'm your Director of Faith Formation here at Valley UU. The book I have for you today, I created a whole video on, so hopefully we won't have any audio problems. You'll be able to hear it. It's called Every Month is a New Year, Celebrations Around the World. And it's written by Marilyn Singer, illustrated by Susan Roth. So as we know, New Year's Eve, it happens on December 31st, and the new year starts on January 1st. Well, not everywhere. You know, if you think about Chinese New Year, usually in January or February. Iranians observe Nowruz in March. For Thai people, Songkran occurs in April. Ethiopians have Enkutatash. Don't quote me on that pronunciation. In September. So all of these diverse cultural, regional, and religious observations, and many others, have deep-rooted traditions and treasured customs. Every month in the year, somewhere in the world, people celebrate with joy and good wishes for a happy new year. Every month is a new year, celebrations around the world. Oh, and then afterwards, the children will meet me out at the door and we'll go across to the classrooms. This book has New Year's poems from around the world and around the year. I had to shorten most of the poems, so if you're interested in reading the whole book, you can find it on Amazon and in some of our local bookstores and libraries. Midnight Ball Drop. Tonight, hand in hand with Grandma, I stand in the middle of this merry, loud crowd, waiting for that glittering ball to drop at the magic hour, bringing on a confetti shower. First footing, midnight and the bells are ringing. Old Lang Syne, they're downstairs singing. We're supposed to be in bed, but we're peeking out instead to see what first footer will come our way with grown-up treats and good luck tonight on Hogmanay. Oh, there's someone knocking. We run out to hug him, and we're allowed to stay to greet the year with gifts and cheer tonight on Hogmanay. 2 New Years. The fir tree is up, and we are arguing this New Year's Eve about where to hang the ornaments. We want this tree to be perfect right through the old New Year's Day, 2 whole weeks from now. 2 New Years and Christmas too. What more can you want? Dragon Dance. Today my shy brother has become part red dragon, dancing joyfully in the square, whipping his tail to the beat of the drum, chasing away the evil spirits, bringing health, wealth, and joy. 13 days. The house is clean, the seeds are sprouting. We'll set the half scene. We'll go on an outing. We'll kiss and we'll hug, wishing all a good year. On the 13th day, we'll visit the park, play in the sunlight, banish the dark, get rid of the Sabzine, and with it bad news. The world is reborn every spring on Nowruz. Washing the bad away. 3 hot days in April. Time to scrub the house. Time to bathe the Buddhas. To build stupas out of sand. So we gather blessings, so we understand how good deeds make our lives complete. To start the new year right with a gigantic water fight. New moon, new year. My brother has heard this solemn story before of the prophet's passage, of how our community began. Going to the mosque is as new to him as the crescent moon. Surrounded by peace and prayer, he is bright with this new year. He is aglow with growing up. Bringing together earth and sky. When the little eyes rise, heralding the new year, we will talk of who came before us. We will send our kite toward the stars. We will watch it fly to heaven. My sister will wonder, can we make it go that high? The young sun rises. The night is cold. My family is warm with stories of the New Year's past. The air is quiet. My family is loud with music and laughter. But dawn will come. Together we will stand in the doorway. We will shout, "We noi tripantu," to the young sun. Smashing the pots. Long ago in Egypt, the year began when people prayed that the Nile would perfectly overflow and the land would be made fertile. There would be food for everyone. Everyone believes in different beginnings, but what is true and what is clear is that all of us have hope for a luminous year. Nowruz, Navruz. Nowruz, Navruz is so nice we celebrate it twice. Nowruz, Navruz, call it what you wish, says my cousin from Iran. The year begins in March for him, in August for me. I believe no matter the name, what lips may say a different way, hearts will hear the same. Daisies. Many years ago, the Queen of Sheba gave gold to King Solomon. Now, in fields golden with daisies, I will sing of this beautiful land. I will gather a bouquet to give to you on this shining New Year's Day. Give me back a smile. We will all be kings and queens on Enku Tatash. Casting away sins. This morning in the synagogue, we heard the shofar's loud, clear sound. This sunny afternoon, we walked to the creek, our pockets full of bread. I lost the money, my sister whispers. I tore the dress, I whisper back. Then we toss the bread and our sins and watch the flowing water carry them far, far away. Festival of Lights. On Diwali, no one can make sweets like Daddy. No one can make rangoli like Ma. No one can sing songs like Nani. And no one can light every corner of our house like my sister and me. On this Festival of Lights, we are beginning again, shiny, busy, and noisy with hope. Fire is better. Some people say you can wash the bad away. Yes, that may be true, but in my country, we set the bad ablaze. Pappy, so brave, will jump over our fire. Mammy won't let me till I can jump higher, but I'll dance and cheer as the merry sparks fly. Año viejo, it's time for goodbye. Las 12 uvas de la suerte. 12 grapes, 12 wishes on a plate. Tonight we stay up late, and with each peal of the bell we eat. Eat so each new month will be sweet. May all our dreams come true. Turning the year. Celebrate! We turn the year, watching in temples and houses, in parks and squares. Together we create these clocks and calendars from the moon's phases, from the earth's movement. We choose the date.
Good morning. I'm Mary Rothschild, your worship associate, and I want to welcome all of you to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation in our hybrid mode, both in our sanctuary and on Zoom. We're a loving, welcoming community, and we're so glad you joined us today. Let me assure you that whatever your heritage, whoever you choose to love, however your family is structured, and however you feel difference or sameness, you are welcome here. With this in mind, it's our great pleasure to welcome any guests to our congregation, and we would love it if any new visitors in our sanctuary would stand so we might know who you are and welcome you more fully at the end of the service. Are there any new visitors today? Thank you. I know it's scary to stand up when you don't know anybody. Thank you. For new visitors here in the sanctuary, there's normally a welcome circle after the service, and also normally for new visitors on Zoom, we have a special screen for you to meet people and learn about VUU and Unitarian Universalism more generally. However, today, we are having a congregational conversation with the Board of Trustees immediately following the service. And so these two welcome circles will not happen today, nor will there be breakout rooms after the congregational conversation. In the sanctuary, our pastoral care member is Carl Anderson. Carl, would you stand up? Thanks. Who will be at the front of the sanctuary following the service for anyone who needs a listening ear and go into the back room. And Roz Hawkins is our pastoral care member on Zoom today, and you can contact her in the chat. Lastly, you can always contact a lay pastoral care assistant during the week by emailing pastoralcare@vuu.org. Today, our interim minister, the Reverend Fred Wooden, is in Grand Rapids helping his wife, Wendy, as she begins a new phase of her cancer treatment. We wish Wendy as good an experience as is possible, and I want you to know that I'm holding you both in the light, as the Quakers say. Since Reverend Fred is in Michigan, we have the pleasure here of welcoming the Reverend Bill Price, a friend of Reverend Friend's and the pastor of an online congregation called Churchish, where he writes, and I quote, "We nurture people in body, mind, and soul. We are a non-creedal, non-denominational, non-discriminatory spiritual community. We welcome everyone with open arms, open hearts, and open minds." As a person who does have open arms and open heart, and sometimes I have an open mind, I am so looking forward to hearing Reverend Bill's sermon. Reverend Bill has ministered to 6 churches in his career, including an interim term at a UU congregation, but has mainly been a minister at UCC denominational churches, or as the old joke goes, Unitarians considering Christianity. Since UCC was my religious background as well, which gave me a life-changing foundation of social gospel Christianity in my youth, I'm really interested to hear what he has to say today, and I hope you are too. It's the new year, dear friends, and we have just passed the anniversary of the insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. As an American historian who has spent my entire adult life studying our national past, I approach this new year with real trepidation. COVID is raging. We're going into our third year of fear and confusion, but there's no confusion about this. Vaccines work, get them. Our politics are more divided than at any other time in our history since the outbreak of the Civil War, and our planet is withering away under the scourge of climate change. So I could just stand here and depress you, but I hope I won't, because I believe we still have the opportunity to turn all this around, to make the world better for our children, grandchildren, and people everywhere. If we live our UU principles actively and work for the common good, we can help clear the path to a better world for others, because this is our most important community task. I'm not much of a New Year celebration person, but I do think it is a great time to recommit ourselves to working for the beloved community we all dream of welcoming into existence. So I want to leave you with this poem, Think of Yourself by Jan Phillips, that helps me envision what is possible when each of us commits to work for the common good. Think of yourself as the thought of the Infinite One, made flesh by your sheer desire to see and be seen. Think of yourself as nature looking upon nature in awe at its grandeur, in tears for its wounds, nature loving itself, healing itself, speaking out for itself. Think of yourself as a vessel of stardust and clay, a child of the cosmos, evolving and transforming every minute of the day, matter into energy, particle into wave, mortal into immortal. Think of yourself as a soul who took on a body to be of use, to radiate love and receive it in return. Think of yourself as a shaman whose hands heal whatever they touch, as a storyteller whose words fall like rain on a drought-stricken land, whose stories are medicine, miracles that heal the sick and raise the dead. Think of yourself as a circle holding yin and yang, as unity cradling the dualities in your arms. Think of yourself as thought leaning toward radiance, an early dawn rising into daylight. Think of yourself as necessary, purposeful, here for a reason. Remember, you came here to light the world. Deep inside you, the fire of creation burns day and night. Atoms from the Big Bang spin and swirl in your blood and bones, your lungs and your legs. Like salt in the tear, joy in the laughter. The Holy One is in you, being scattered like seeds across the land as you speak and write and reach out to touch. You are the hands and feet, the eyes and ears of the great beloved. It is time now that each of us say what happened and what we learned. To reveal ourselves is to heal ourselves, and to heal ourselves is to heal each other and the world entire. For our revelations of intimacy and truthfulness, vulnerability and generosity, the future takes shape and enters into us. Our words made flesh, our thoughts made real. Yes, think of yourself as a creator, the peace you desire, the justice you cry for. Though these will come as we speak them into being. As the cosmos is being created by the mind of the Infinite One, the world is being created by the minds of the finite ones, by us. Let us be mindful and full of the care for the words we speak, the thoughts we think, the stories we tell. For these are the tools with which we will build tomorrow. And now, dear friends, I want to thank you again for being here with us this morning, and welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Well, before I start asking for money, I want to say a few words about my good friend Bill Freeman. Sorry, Mary, Bill Freeman. Bill was a member of the church I served most recently, although I should point out he was on his way to seminary as I was coming into the church. So we knew each other socially and as he went to seminary. And then after he got his credentials, we ended up doing a radio program together weekly, I think for almost 7 years. So we became very well acquainted. Mary told you all the salient facts. All I know is Bill was a television personality before he was a pulpit personality, and you will enjoy that gift as well. He speaks with great clarity and engagement, and I very much admire and sometimes envy his gifts. I'm grateful for his presence here today. Now, let me talk about the money. I do have to talk about money. And the first thing I want to say is I have good news. We are over 80% of the way toward our pledge goal for 2022. That's phenomenal news. And if you have yet to make your pledge, we want you to so we can get to that 100% mark. Because a pledge tells us, me, the board, how much we can plan to spend. And when we do that, we can be more accurate about where we put the money, not just with salaries, but with programs and all the things that we need and want. But then why do we take a collection? If for some reason you've already made your pledge, why would you want to pass the plate in the first place? Because we have to be reminded that it is a spiritual practice, not a financial one. Because we ask for your money not just so that you can give it, but so we can receive it. It is the act of giving and receiving that is the spiritual part. And if you're not present, we're not present to you. The ushers will take a collection in a moment, but what you're making is an offering, kind of holding out your hand. So it really is about you every week, giving value to this hour, to this work, to this community. Whatever you offer tells us that this worship is worth something. So text, click, email, snail mail, make a phone call. In some way or another, make your pledge and your offering, because that really does make this time worth your while, makes it worthy of your worship. At this point, we turn toward our centering time. Centering is what we call that pause we want to build into our hour of worship to remind us that we are here to put body and soul together. In a world that constantly wants to chop us into little bits, our work self, our family self, our political self, our spiritual self, we say, no, there's just one person. And that person is you or me. And centering means to pull all that back together if we can, just for a moment, to remind ourselves this is the source from which everything comes. So as we center ourselves, we remember our breathing. We remember our posture. We remember our eyes and ears and fingertips. We remember our singularity as people and our unity as a community. Not just VUU, but everyone and everything. Our breathing in takes in air that has been in the lungs of pharaohs and of fools. We share the atmosphere with trees that replenish it with oxygen. We know that the air and the sea constantly kiss one another and exchange breath of life so that nothing is ever totally apart from anything else. And so we pause. Our centering hymn as we move from our centering time, and we'll wait a moment before it starts, kind of continues what we heard in our first hymn. It is around, like our first hymn was. It has substance that is similar. It speaks to creating, maintaining, and deepening the connections between people in these very polarized times. Building bridges. It's presented to us by our friends at the Unitarian Universalist community of Utica, New York. You may sing along at home, hum along in the sanctuary, and you can always move along as well.
Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. With all of our voices and all of our visions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such reach out to me. With all of our voices and all of our visions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such reach out to me. With all of our voices and all of our visions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such reach out to me. With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
This is our time that we give to prayer, which sounds curious in a UU congregation where, as they say, all of our prayers are addressed to whom it may concern. But I want to point to a scene in a movie. One of my favorite movies, as you may remember, is Moonstruck. That funny, silly movie about, it's about Nicolas Cage and Cher portraying characters in the Italian world of Brooklyn, New York. But at the end of that film, the romance having reached its denouement, the character that Cher is playing, Loretta Castorini, is asked by her fiancé why she is ending the engagement and says, let's go in the other room and talk, says Tommy Aiello, Tommy Camerari. And she says, no, I have to be here with my family, surrounded by all of her family. If you look behind me, you can see I'm standing in front of a fireplace and you can make out a lot of photographs. Those are photographs of my spouse and my kids as they grew up, starting over there and moving all the way over here. Right in the middle are photographs of my wife and me. I'll go get them. This is a very faded photograph from our wedding day. Can you see that? Here is one taken at exactly the same spot 40 years later. I think we held up pretty well, don't you? That kind of continuity of relationship, of person, that also includes connections of change as well as stability. I want you to think about that in your prayerful moment. Who are the witnesses to your life? In the Christian scriptures, in the book of Hebrews, we are told that we are supposed to run the race before us because we're compassed about by so great a cloud of witnesses, which is not a Christian thing at all. If you've ever run a race, you know that at the end there are people cheering. And somehow when you hear them cheering, that gives you a little more energy. How does it do that? I don't know. But I guess what's important is realizing that when others are witnessing us, or watching us try to run our race, whatever it is, it gives us strength and hope. So I guess my prayer that I hope you will share is that we notice the witnesses, whether they are a spouse, a child, a parent, a friend, a neighbor, a colleague. Perhaps it is not even a person. Perhaps it's a place that has witnessed your growing up and growing on and even growing old. Give thanks for the witnesses who in presence and absence have given you cause to have hope and strength. And so our prayer is that we thank the witnesses, those who cheered us on and cheer us on and ever shall as we run the race of life. Our special music Katie has chosen is a song called One Power by Daniel Nakamoto. He's been writing music for some time, and this particular song has gained a great deal of popularity around the world. It's a message of peace and love and compassion. Someone called it the Imagine John Lennon's song for 30 years later. It's been praised on a number of programs and another of organizations, but we're here just to listen to him sing it himself because he says it's the closest to his heart and his purpose. So we're going to hear Daniel Nakamoto singing his song One Power at the 2018 Parliament of Religions, and that'll be a fit beginning and introduction to Bill's words. Shall we hear One Power?
There's one power, invisible, and just see it everywhere and every day. One power, indescribable, and just speak of it with every word you say. Mysterious until you know the truth. As simple as the love inside of you. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, angel's wings or heaven's door. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? It's the power of the love in you and me. We speak so many languages, different clothing, different colors, different names. But different is only dangerous when we forget that in the heart we're all the same. And we'll remember once we close our eyes to see that such distances were never meant to be. Call it God, call it Spirit, or Jesus, or Lord. Call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, Hashem, or Heaven's Door. It's Muhammad, it's your mind, it's your soul, or it's your sign. It's the universe, it's music, Mother Earth, or Father Time. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? Whatever name you give it, it's the very air we breathe. It's the power of the love in you and me. One power, yeah. One power. One power is what we are. It's the moment of creation. It's an everlasting peace. It's the freedom of forgiveness. It's the sweetness of release. It's the joy of inspiration. It's the sunshine on your face. It's the birthright of all nations. It's the boundlessness of space. It's the beauty of a baby. The serenity of sleep. It's the anchor we abandon. For it's love that's most deep. It's one power. Oh, what we are is one power. It's the power of the love that lives forever in you and me. It's the power of the love in you and me.
Wow. How do I follow that? Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Before I begin, I want to thank Fred for inviting me to speak here today. And I want to thank you all for showing up to hear me speak. I'm always amazed when anybody shows up to hear me speak. I invited Fred to speak at my church when I had a church back in Michigan. I invited Fred to come and speak. I introduced him by saying that I'm a minister in the United Church of Christ, and there's Christ in the name of the United Church of Christ. But I've noticed that a lot of UCC ministers don't believe in Christ. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And then I introduced Fred, and I said, well, Fred's a minister in the Unitarian Universalist Church, but I've noticed that, you know, even though Unitarian means belief in one God, that a lot of Unitarian ministers don't believe in God. And Fred said, shh, keep that quiet. Don't say that. I'm from, as Fred wrote in the introduction, that I'm from the UCC, but I'm from the wing of the UCC that believes UCC stands for Unitarians Considering Christ. And that's probably because I've always been a skeptic of religion. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I'm sitting in church when the communion elements go by.
Well, I didn't partake because I know, I'm too young to drink wine. So then I was running around in the church afterwards, and I went into the kitchen, and there were all these elderly ladies there. And they were putting away the communion elements, but they weren't putting away wine. They were putting away grape juice. And it wasn't even Welch's grape juice. It was some kind of funky generic brand. It was as if scales fell from my eyes. Thus, a religious skeptic was born. Then I was in the 3rd grade. We had a Christmas party in our public school. It wasn't a holiday party, it was a Christmas party. After a little while, I didn't see one of my friends there. So I said to the teacher, where's so-and-so? And she kind of snarled at me and said, well, she's Jewish and they don't believe in Christmas, so she stayed home. And I was flabbergasted. I mean, I didn't have the words to say it at the time, but it seemed to me that if my friend felt excluded, we shouldn't have this Christmas party. So thus was born a believer in interfaith understanding. Many years later, I felt called to the ministry on my birthday in 2001. My birthday is 9/11. After seeing the tragic events of that day, I decided to pursue a path to pastoring, to try to one day preach love in a hate-filled world. So I went to seminary, and when I was in seminary, I took a sacraments class. I learned about baptism, and I realized that I'd never been baptized. So I said to my teaching church pastor, I said, I suppose if I'm going to be a Christian minister, I should be baptized. And he was very understanding. He said, well, duh. So he asked me, when would you like to be baptized? Do you have a special date? And I thought, well, my daughter's birthday is in June. That would probably be a good time. But it was December. So I said, well, I don't want to wait that long. Let's just do it this Sunday. So I woke up that Sunday. I looked at the calendar and I said, oh my goodness, it's December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. And then I was assigned to preach my first sermon in seminary, in chapel, on April 1st, April Fool's Day. Now, the seminary I went to was pretty fundamentalist, orthodox. I was called the high priest of heresy because I was so liberal. They said it was a coincidence that the high priest of heresy preached his first sermon in seminary on April Fool's Day. We report, you decide. But anyway, so I see those days and dates. My birthday, 9/11, my baptism day, December 7th, and my first preaching day, April Fool's Day, to mean that my ministry should always be about peace, love, and joy. A few years ago, I went to get my driver's license renewed. That was my day off from church, so I probably looked a little grubby. I don't think I'd shaved. I had on a raggedy old t-shirt and jeans. And I think the woman behind the counter must have thought I was either homeless or an escaped mental patient, because she asked me questions I'd never been asked when I got my driver's license renewed. She said, do you have hallucinations? Do you hear voices? I kind of chuckled and said, no, but I do see visions, but I think I'm supposed to because I'm a pastor. She laughed and said to the woman next to her, this one says he sees visions, but it's okay because he's a pastor. I have a vision for this sermon. It starts off kind of strange, but hopefully by the end, it will make sense. And that's what a sermon should do, isn't it? It should make sense of life. First, the strange part. Disgraced former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn said recently, a few weeks ago, that America should have just one religion. I kind of doubt that he means Islam. He probably means Christianity and Orthodox Christianity. But I think that there's a problem with that, because Orthodox Christians usually believe every word of the Bible is true. They take every word of the Bible literally. I take every word of the Bible liberally. So I don't think we should have the Bible as the law of the land. Because if we did have the Bible as the law of the land, I mean, the Bible says that homosexuals should be murdered. Obviously, we all don't believe that. In fact, several years ago, I was in Michigan, my home state, and I went before the Holland City Council, and I asked them to pass a gay rights ordinance. Well, they voted on it, and they voted not to pass a gay rights ordinance. This was about the time of the Occupy Wall Street situation. So I said, well, I'm going to occupy City Hall until they do pass a gay rights ordinance. So I did. I occupied City Hall for about 2 hours before they had me arrested for trespassing. A year or so later, I was put on trial and I was convicted and had to pay a fine. At the time, I was the interim minister at a UU church. And I thought, oh, they might be upset that I'm convicted. But they weren't. They were very happy. In fact, they called me a man of conviction. Then a little later, I got a call to a church in California. And one of the members of the search committee said to the congregation, I like him because he was convicted. So I did get that. But that's why I don't want the Bible to be the law of the land, because of things like that. The Bible also, if the Bible were the law of the land, the Bible says that women should be silent in church. Well, I don't think women should be silent in church. Half my seminary class were women, and they were going to go on to be preachers. I don't think women should be silent in church. But one day, a few years ago, I heard a radio preacher say that not only should women be silent in church, they shouldn't even laugh at a minister's joke. Because if they laugh at a minister's joke, that shows that they have superiority over the minister and they can decide what's funny. Now, I have to admit, there have been times when I've told jokes in church and women have been silent. In fact, they sometimes shake their head. But that's probably another story. So I don't think women should be silent in church, and I don't think the Bible should be the law of the land. If the Bible was the law of the land, the Bible also says that we are all born sinners. Well, I don't believe we're all born sinners. But I heard a radio preacher, and I know I listen to radio preachers too much, but this radio preacher said, I can prove that we're all born sinners. He said, take a 2-year-old and put her in the middle of the living room, set her down and tell her not to move, and then leave the room. When you come back later, if the 2-year-old has moved, that proves that we're all born sinners. And I thought, no, that proves that 2-year-olds can't sit still. So I don't believe we should have the Bible as the law of the land, and I don't believe we're all born sinners. In fact, I'd like to believe we're all born saints. Maybe later on we make mistakes, we commit errors, but I believe we're all born saints. So I don't believe Orthodox Christianity should be the one religion of America. So if it's not the one religion of America, what should be the one religion of America? Well, at the risk of sounding like I'm sucking up, I would like to say that I believe the one religion of America should be Unitarian Universalism, because it's so inclusive. But I'm not sure that everyone in the country would agree with that. So what should the one religion of America be? Well, I imagine if an alien spacecraft landed in Texas, that the aliens would say that the one religion of America is football. And if an alien spacecraft landed in Vegas, the aliens would probably say that the one religion of America is gambling. And if the alien spacecraft landed in Washington, D.C., the aliens would probably say the one religion of America is politics. But I hope none of that is true. So, what should be the one religion in America? Let's listen to some spiritual leaders and some sacred texts before I talk about what the one religion of America should be. The Buddhist leader, the Dalai Lama, says, "My religion is simple. My religion is kindness." The holy Hindu, Gandhi, says that if we want peace, we can't have peace through arms. We can only have peace through justice. In the Islamic holy book, the Quran, we read that God demands that we have justice and fairness. In the Hebrew scriptures, the prophet Isaiah says, "Do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly." A couple thousand years ago, a rabbi by the name of Jesus said, "Do to others as you would have them do to you. On this rest the law and the prophets." A little closer to our own time, the Christian leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., paraphrasing Theodore Parker, a Unitarian minister, he said, the long arc of the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. So I would say that the one religion of America should be justice. So what does that mean? I mean, we don't mean justice like hang 'em high in Texas. We mean justice like helping others, helping the homeless, supporting women's rights, caring for the sick. Now, some people think that justice should be done individually, that it shouldn't be something that the government does. It should be done individually, like when we hand an unhoused person some money for food, or maybe collectively, like at a food bank that feeds people in need. But sometimes justice has to be done on a greater scale. And that's where I think the government comes in. Now, I know there are a lot of people who say, no, the government shouldn't say anything or shouldn't have anything to do with justice. But think about it. If it wasn't for the government, there wouldn't be Medicare for people 65 and older. There wouldn't be Social Security for people, because charity and individuals couldn't do that alone. Well, maybe some trillionaires could, or billionaires, but we need the government to do things that individuals can't do. And what is the government? According to the preamble of the Constitution, the government is we the people. In other words, we the people elect our representatives, and they hire people to do government work to help people a lot of times. Now, I have even people who believe that charity or justice should be left up to individuals or charity groups. I've never heard of people living in a red state, say, who only believe in individual justice, individual help, whenever they've had a flood or a hurricane or a tornado or a wildfire. I've never heard anybody in a red state that had tragedy say, oh, no, we don't want the government help. We'll do this all on our own. So I think we all agree that sometimes we need to do things collectively, and we need to have the government do that. But we also need to do individually we need to do justice. Several years ago, a Detroit federal judge ruled that Michigan's same-sex marriage ban was unconstitutional. At the time, I was at that UU church in Michigan, and I got a call from the county clerk. Now, the judge issued his ruling about 5 o'clock on a Friday. So the state attorney general couldn't appeal the ruling until the next day. So I got a call from the county clerk saying, would you like to do some same-sex weddings tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah. So the next day, I did 48 same-sex weddings all in one day. People came from as far away as Indiana and Ohio, people who'd been together for dozens of years, in some cases, decades, and couldn't get married, but now they could. And it was so gratifying to me to be able to marry him. A parishioner of mine was in Vegas. He says, I'm sitting there in the casino and I look up at the TV and there's my minister on CNN doing a same-sex wedding. So sometimes justice can be fun. After that, I was called to a church in California. The first day on the job, I noticed something that I didn't see when I came for an interview. They had a beautiful peace garden. And I noticed that first day that they had a sign in the peace garden that said, no trespassing. And I thought, who puts a no trespassing sign in a peace garden? So I asked people, why is there a no trespassing sign? And they said, oh, that's to keep the homeless out. What? Isn't this a church? So I asked the church council, could I take down that sign and put up a sign that says, Peace Garden open for prayer 24/7? And they agreed. And yes, after that, we had homeless people sleeping in the Peace Garden at night, although I kind of think they were praying, and I thought we should leave them alone. So we did. Now, I thought that was perfectly fine, but neighbors of the church apparently didn't, because my picture was put up on a bulletin board in the community, and it said something like, this is the evil minister who lets the homeless sleep in our neighborhood. So doing justice isn't always popular. Sure, a few days after Charlottesville at that same church, we had a sign on the corner that said our name and said what my sermon was going to be. And so a few days after Charlottesville, I put on the bottom of that sign, I put, deport white supremacists, not immigrants. The local online paper put that picture, or put our sign in, a picture of our sign in the paper. That Sunday, there were about a dozen protesters outside of our church. I think it was because of the sign and because we were going to vote that day on becoming a sanctuary church, meaning we support immigrants and refugees having a path to citizenship because we believe in the words on the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Well, obviously the people protesting didn't agree with that. We did approve that, becoming a sanctuary church. And I was called a fake pastor. They said fake pastor, and one of them tried to get me fired, not from the church, from the denomination. But thankfully, the denomination, the UCC, is pretty liberal, and they agreed with what I was saying. So sometimes justice can be unpopular with some, but popular with others. Theologian Karl Barth says, a preacher should write a sermon with a Bible in one hand and a newspaper in the other. I agree with that, because a lot of times in the news, there are examples of justice and injustice. Michelle Goodwin is a law professor at the University of California. She wrote a piece for the New York Times recently in which she said when she was a little girl, her father repeatedly raped her. When she was 12, she became pregnant. Thankfully, she was able to get an abortion. She said, looking at the situation in Texas, where, as you know, they're banning abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy when a lot of women don't even know they're pregnant. And the ban includes victims of rape and incest. She says that's immoral and hopes that the US Supreme Court will at least allow victims of rape and incest to be able to get an abortion. Probably not very likely for that Supreme Court will agree with that, but we'll see. The court is expected to rule that there is no right to an abortion in the Constitution, which is true. But there's also no right to an appendectomy in the Constitution. But I think we'd all agree that people should have a right to an appendectomy in order to save their health. And it seems to me that most Americans believe that women should have a right to an abortion to save their physical and mental health. We'll see what happens. I'm just happy. I agree with the person who said that if men could get pregnant, abortion would be a sacrament. I'm just happy to live in California, where the governor says that he wants to make California a sanctuary church, meaning that California will pay for women from out of state to travel here, pay for their travel, pay for their room and board, and pay for their abortion. I think that's great. I would think that conservative taxpayers would agree with that, because, a lot of conservatives support bodily autonomy, at least when it comes to vaccines. And a lot of them carry signs that say, "My body, my choice." So I would think even conservative taxpayers in California would support California being a sanctuary state. A few years ago, I drove into a gas station to get filled up. And as soon as I stepped out of my car, there was a guy standing right in front of me. He says, "Are you happy with your soul?" And I thought, oh God, an evangelist. He's going to tell me if I don't believe what he believes, I'm going to go straight to hell. So I hemmed and hawed for a little bit, and I finally said, "Yeah, I'm kind of happy with my soul." He says, "My wife's thinking about getting one of these." I said, "Oh, you mean my Kia Soul?" "Yes, I'm very happy with my Kia Soul." I think we can all be happy with our soul when we do justice, individually, collectively, and even the government doing justice. We can be happy with our soul. I'd like to end my sermon the way I end my services on Sunday. I say that I want to end our service with an altar call, not by calling people to the altar or to the living room, but by calling on people to alter their lives, if they haven't already, to live life fully alive. I said, I believe we can do that if we answer 3 questions. Do you promise to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly? I believe if you do all that, you can't help but to live life fully alive. My hope is that we all live life fully alive by doing justice in 2022 and forever and ever.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Reverend Bill. We're now going to have our closing hymn, which is Answering the Call of Love. It was written by Jason Sheldon, the UU minister and songwriter, for marriage equality originally in Massachusetts. And it has been changed to Standing on the Side of Love, to Answering the Call of Love, in a nod actually to people who cannot stand, and disability rights. Answering the Call of Love is one of our favorite songs. And again, in the sanctuary, hum, and at home, sing it out.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering to the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering to the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering to the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering to the call of love. A brighter day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering to the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering to the call of love. We are answering to the call of love.
My thanks to Bill Freeman, my friend, my partner in righteous crimes over the last 15 years. And a reminder that next week, another of my wonderful colleagues, Patrice Curtis, will be appearing also virtually. Patrice is a UU clergy person working for the UUA staff with the Transitional Ministries Department. That's me. But also someone with something wonderful to say. And I'm looking forward to hearing those words. And I expect you will be back to hear them as well. As we come to the close of our worship, words from the author and clergy person, Edward Everett Hale. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something I can do. A reminder that we should not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, that being good is what we're called to be, and not perfect at it, just a little better than we were yesterday. And so with that in mind, illuminated by the chalice of word and deed and hope and prayer, I invite Mary to extinguish that chalice so that we can move forward in our lives.
If you're at home, please extinguish your chalice and say with me these words as we extinguish the chalice here in the sanctuary. Though we extinguish the chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. Remember, there's a congregational conversation in Zoom and here in the sanctuary, beginning at the end of this service. And so, dear friends, as we close our service, please go out in the world in peace after the congregational conversation and just a little unrest. Thank you for being here today.